want to actually start by thanking Brenda, who's not here because she's watching my baby, which is in the other room. So it's a little, we have a whole nother talk to communicate, or for me to share with you what it's like to juggle being a mom and growing this enterprise. Okay, so I'm really thrilled to be here, and I'm especially thrilled to tell you that we, after launching our company 7 years ago, we just sold it for hundreds of millions of dollars. Our acquirer was Group Danone, which is a $22 billion global leader in infant nutrition. Their mission is to bring health through food to people everywhere. On top of that, we are sold in over 33 countries all around the world. We're expecting to reach about 100 million in sales next year, and we were just honored by President Obama in the White House. So it sounds incredible, right? Thank you. Well, today, it's not talking about platitudes of success. Today is really about telling you all of the challenges and the nitty-gritty stuff that we had to go through to get here. So I'll start in spring of 2004. I graduated from MBA from Cornell and got a job in Austin, Texas with Whole Foods Market. But a year later, I decided to quit my job. I wanted to do something that I really, really believed in, something I could care about, something that was really connected to my passion. For a long time, I had dreamed about being a social entrepreneur. I don't know if any of you know Seth Goldman from Honest Tea, but he literally created his first batch of tea in his bathtub and created it and turned it into a multi-hundred-million-dollar enterprise. Incredible. And Anita Roddick of The Body Shop, who first started her company as a human rights activist and created The Body Shop, which is an incredible brand. So these people were the kind of social entrepreneurs that I had dreamed of being. They really used their businesses as a tool for social good, and I was very inspired by them. So in the summer of 2005, I left Whole Foods to join a woman that I barely knew named Shazi Visram. She was going to be my brand new business partner. Shazi had a great idea, and I loved her idea. She wanted to create something that did not exist in the marketplace: fresh, organic baby food. I loved her idea for a number of reasons. First, I had suffered from some digestive issues a couple years prior, and through that, it was just a real journey for me in health and wellness, and I really realized the benefit that food has in creating health and wellness. I am a health food nut, so really passionate about that. Allergies, eczema, asthma, obesity have all reached epidemic rates in our society. And this idea, many issues of these kind of issues can be linked to the ills of processed foods. So this is, I thought, an incredible idea. Also, the competition, Gerber, had not innovated, literally had not innovated since the 1930s when they first invented the baby food jar. And they were in a monopoly in the category. So it was an incredible, wide open opportunity to do something different. The modern mom really was asking for a modern brand alternative. And here is Shazi's first name and logo. She's an incredible marketer and strategist, but she needed a business partner, somebody who could help her get the business off the ground. So I always remember the first phone call, because people often talk about how do partnerships really begin. I always remember the phone call that we had when we first cut the deal for our partnership, and she would take 51% of the business, I would have 49%. We each agreed to invest $10,000, and I would move to New York, where we would start the company. I'd also just gotten married, so my husband and I packed up everything we owned and moved to this beautiful city. We were really excited because we were going to share our very first apartment together, and we had booked it through a friend from Cornell who gave us a great deal on rent. So there was no furniture in the place, but we agreed we were going to just sleep on a sleeping bag to get started in our first place. And so we got there on a hot summer night and turned on the lights and realized that we weren't actually alone. We had roommates. And we did not want to sleep with them. So we decided to pitch a tent on the floor. And it was so hot inside the tent in the living room floor that we literally rotated all night like rotisserie chickens. I'll never forget that. The next morning, we were happy to get out of there and get ready to go to our first factory. And so this was supposed to be our first place where we were going to make fresh, organic baby food. Obviously, Shazi and I took one look at this place and we were like, absolutely not. This is crazy. We can't do this. So at this point, we had some creative recipes, homemade recipes that we had made in the blender, a mix of spinach, mango, pear, butternut squash and apples, peas with mint, so really fun recipes. And it was my job to figure out how do we make these recipes into something that we can sell nationwide. So 4 million babies are born every year, which is actually not that big of a category. 2 million babies are enrolled in WIC right at birth. So this is an incredibly stunning statistic, and what it means is that the market for premium organic baby food is actually really small. We had to create a national business from the start. There was no way to do like a little local, start it in one city and hope to grow it over the next coming years. We had to begin to scale. So I started teaching myself about food science. I bought a pH meter and tried to figure out how I could test for food safety and shelf life. Soon I got a really bad feeling. I realized we couldn't do fresh because the food won't keep long enough and it will spoil. So think about peas going bad after about 5 to 7 days in your fridge. We also found out that the name Fresh Start was taken. Oops. And besides that, Shazi had been working on the business for 3 years prior to me joining her. And she had maxed out her credit cards and was completely out of money. And so she sat me down and told me, listen, I got to sell real estate temporarily. This is getting ugly for me personally. Meanwhile, my husband and I are still sleeping in our tent. And I'm starting to get a little bit worried about the neighborhood we're living in. I found out from a cop down the street that there was this huge drug house. And so it explained that car down the street with the gold hubcaps that was really buffed out. He was like, you've got to get out of there. So now I had no place to live. Shazi needed to sell real estate to make ends meet. We had no brand name, no viable product, and no factory to produce it in. So it's getting pretty bad. It's crisis time. I have to shore myself up somehow. So it's time to bring out my power cards. I am a true believer in positive thinking. It is an incredibly powerful thing that you can channel. So I put these cards everywhere. I'll admit, in my drawers, on my desk, in my mirror. And it was especially helpful when you're thinking about fundraising, because you need to have the right mindset. And Shazi and I were constantly fundraising. We raised actually over $20 million over the course of our business to get us to here, all common stock. Zach Schulman actually helped us with our very first bridge loan agreement. We never took a penny of venture capital. And for the first funding round, we needed about $550,000, we figured. It took us about 9 months to raise it. We valued the company at $2.5 million, and as little as $2,500 could buy a piece of our business. So we truly built this from the ground up. We also applied for a grant from the Eileen Fisher Company. Here's a picture of Eileen and Shazi and me looking at some of our branding. And we won their prize for $10,000 to support women entrepreneurs. It was really exciting. And that was the seed money. That was the very early money that we got to fund our new product idea. So we couldn't do the fresh. We decided we were going to do frozen. It was pretty risky because you're basically asking parents to change behavior. There are baby yogurts in the fridge aisle. There's obviously baby food in the baby food aisle, but there's nothing related to baby food in the freezer aisle. So we decided we just had to get something out in the market. It had been a long time coming, and we just decided to go for it. So by now, we were incorporated. We had a little funding and a new name, HAPPYBABY. But we still needed to find a factory. It was incredibly difficult to come up with one that's willing to start up with a food brand, also that's willing to feed the most vulnerable population on the planet, infants. So this was one of the biggest challenges for us in getting started. But finally we got a break. Someone Shazi knew had a connection in the natural foods industry, and he said he was willing to let us produce in his plant. We got off the phone with him, and I remember I think I practically picked Shazi up. We were so excited. We were like jumping up and down. This was like the biggest break that we'd had. And we first produced our first test run of the factory. Shazi and I were like Laverne and Shirley. We were joking. We had one of those, this one-up depositor. It had foot pedals. And so every time we would push the pedal, it would squirt baby food into the tray. And so Shazi worked the peas, I worked the carrots. It was a truly great story. So then we would box up our cases, we would box up our product, put them into their boxes, we put them into cases, put them into master pallets, shrink wrap, and then put it into the blast freezer. 2 weeks later, we received some samples of our product and realized that the peas and carrots were rotten. We had to throw out a third of that run. So we dug into the blast freezer. We figured out, literally going through box by box, that the center of the pallet never froze. And the facility that we were working with didn't really put 2 and 2 together, so we had to figure out the hard way. We did get some great news, though. Retailers loved our concept. So we actually got our very first accounts were 5 gourmet garage stores here and Fresh Direct, which is incredibly exciting. After a couple months, we convinced Whole Foods to take us in a number of regions, and Target was willing to take us in a 24-store test in the Midwest. We also got some excellent PR. Our food was just beautiful, and it was fun to write about. These gorgeous cubes, and as you can see the visuals, it was a really fun story. We also got a pediatrician, a nationally known pediatrician, to endorse us, which is a huge, huge boon. So we did the first big production run for our Target and our Whole Foods launch. And at the end of the run, the VP of operations called us into his office, and he said, "I'm sorry, ladies, but this production run that you just did is going to be your last. We have a new owner, and we can't be fooling around with this frozen baby food anymore." Shazi and I were floored and devastated, and we got in our car. We went into the parking lot and sat in the car of the parking lot of the factory and wrote this guy an email. The new owner, we got his email address. And we made the business case for why he needed to give us more time at least, or keep us in his factory. But then we ended by saying, the fate of our business is in your hands. Do you really, really want this responsibility? So it was incredible. It actually worked, and the guy gave us 3 more months, which was great. So now we're finally in stores, and we're really excited to get our first set of sales data. We're like really looking forward. How's repeat purchase? How's initial purchase? And really bad news: the product is just not selling. Moms are just not finding it because it's in the freezer. So Shazi and I knew we needed another great idea. So we came up with a product that wasn't frozen, that was in the dry set to drive moms to the freezer aisle. And we launched an organic baby cereal with probiotics to drive immunity and DHA for brain and eye development, all organic. Nobody was doing anything like it, and this was an incredible hit. Finally, we had a hit. We also got really lucky because our competitor ran out of supply, so we were the only organic cereal on the shelves for like 6 months. It was incredible. It was really amazing. But then we created more hits. We launched puffs without those chemical flavors, those fake flavors. We launched freeze-dried yogurt melts, and then we discovered our business really took off when we discovered the true alternative to the jar, which is the pouch. And this is my baby who's in the other room. I'm having a pouch right now. We filled the pouch package with superfoods like blueberries, Greek yogurt, chia. If you haven't discovered Salba chia yet, it's incredible. It will change your life. Beets, Greek yogurt. So some parents tell us that this is actually the only healthy thing that their toddler will eat. We started having incredible growth. In 2001, Inc. magazine ranked us the nation's top-selling, top-growing food company. So in 7 years, we went from a struggling startup to something really big. And we did it by dealing with a ton of setbacks. I remember a woman, we were talking about fundraising, a woman we were trying to raise money from said that we would max out our credit cards, we would leverage our homes, that we would basically not be able to raise enough money, and that we'd ultimately go bankrupt. It was like the worst call ever. She obviously didn't invest. So the question is, how do you get here? And I think to distill it, I think one is we are just so persistent. We are never, never willing to give up. We completely believe in our big idea the whole time. And we had grit, which is an expression I've heard before, but it's just you hang on to something and you're never willing to give up. And then second, we really believed in our dream to feed the world's children with a better alternative. We really had a vision for the big idea, and we were just relentless. And we kept on adapting. we zigged and we zagged and we figured out how can we get at this market in a different way? How can we solve this problem in a different way? And we were willing to adjust and be flexible. So oftentimes you hear about the platitudes of success, and my goal today was to just tell you about our real story of how we got started. And hopefully that's inspiring in the sense that oftentimes you just have to put one foot in front of the other and piece it together in a way that, and a lot of things just aren't glamorous in the beginning. So anyway, I'm excited to hear all about all of your ventures, and all the success that you're going to have. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Jessica, for sharing the story. I'm going to get a couple questions from the audience here, and just real quick to pick up on one of the last notes you just made here. I mean, what a roller coaster! There were so many stops, and I imagine there were just so many points where any one of us would say, "Oh, it's just not selling," or just everything's not going your way. And you talk about the grit. Where do you think that comes from?
You mean inside?
The perseverance.
It's interesting. Paul Tuff actually wrote a book, How Children Succeed, because I'm obviously very passionate about parenting as well. And they talk about being able to, again, it's a lot of simple stuff, not being afraid of failure, being willing to stick it out. I think a lot of times in our culture, we have this kind of, nobody wants to tell children in particular kind of how, and how everybody needs an award. Everybody needs a trophy. Everybody needs to win. And I think it's in failures that you really start to realize how to kind of overcome this and how to succeed. So I think I felt like I didn't have anything to lose, and Shazi and I are both incredibly passionate and committed to our ultimate dream. It was in us.
And then when did you have your baby?
So I have two. So that's the other thing. I think actually there were quite a few moms that had similar great idea at the same time. So we saw a number of competitors kind of crop up, like a lot of homemade baby food, a lot of frozen baby food. It was even a category for like a very brief time in the market. And what we realized is that obviously Shazi and I have a lot that we got us here. But I think one of the things is we actually didn't have kids when we started the company. So we'd get up at like 4 a.m, traveling all over. So Shazi and I both had our first children about 3 or 4 years into the business, and I have 2 now, and Shazi has 1. And so it's, I think it's really hard. It's really hard to juggle in that very early stage when you're trying to also be a mom.
Right. So when women come to you for advice on their careers, and they're thinking about a big, bold idea that they have, and they're also thinking perhaps about the aspiration of having a family, what is your advice to them?
Yeah, I definitely took the leap. And then I also felt like I had to take the leap to have a child, because I was 35 when I had my first, and I was like, I gotta just, I do want to have a family too. And so both of those, helping to grow the company and starting the company, and then also having a baby, were both kind of these leaps of faith where you just say, okay, I'm gonna figure it out. So you kind of, your ultimate goal. Your ultimate goal is to start a business, and you really feel like you've got something that you care about, that you believe in. You go for it, and then you really want to have a child, and you feel like you got to do it, or you're going to get too old, and you just say, okay, I got to do this. So.
Let's see. Let me take a couple questions from the group here. So, can you talk about the decision to sell, and how did you come to the final conclusion that was what was best for the business and for you?
Yeah, it was interesting. So we had in our very early business plans that Group Danone was sort of an ideal partner for us. They are truly, from a culture standpoint, they also own Stonyfield Organic Farms brand in the US. And they are a truly mission-driven company. They're European-based, they're based in France. Their baby division is based in the Netherlands. And we really felt an alignment with them as far as their passion for health and wellness and for feeding children the right foods and really infant nutrition, and our vision. And so we almost felt like it was crazy. We had been working on the deal for 7 months before closing. We closed on a Sunday, which we were supposed to close on a Tuesday, then we were supposed to close on a Friday, and then we ended up closing on Sunday. We launched 7 years prior on Mother's Day. The day we signed the deal, for no other, it was Mother's Day. It was crazy, 7 years to the day. It was almost like it was something, I don't know, spooky about the fact that we had kind of felt this, there was magic in the fact that we had created this partnership with them. So, and we have a huge vision with Group Danone. They have a lot of resources and a lot of potential. They've been very wanting us to continue to run the business the way that we know best, and we've been able to advise some of their European brands with a lot of the innovations that we brought here in this country will, we think, work in Europe. So it's been an incredible synergy.
So it sounds like you weren't really seeing it just as an exit, but really almost like a marriage.
Taking it to the next level, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So what made you stay, this is a great question that I also had, what made you stay connected to a brand new co-founder in the early days, especially when you described the situation? I mean, I can imagine if my co-founder was suddenly like, oh, I also have to do real estate on the side, I would be like, you're gonna do what? What kept you together? Yeah,
Shazi is incredibly charismatic. And she, she had a brilliant concept, a brilliant vision, and had been pursuing it for years. And so I felt like, for me, this was my chance to kind of pay her back for this opportunity. I could carry the weight for a few months while she needed to, take care of her personal situation. So it was definitely a challenging time, but it never occurred to me to abandon the project, or, it was just absolutely, for so many reasons, she's so brilliant. I felt like we were such a brilliant match. Our skills were so well matched. It's funny, it's like hard to, when you think back, I'm like, really, did I stick with it all that? It's like, it's kind of crazy when you kind of, but it's just, you believe in the big vision, so.
Yeah. Let's see, can you, so maybe there's a question about your selling process a little bit, and just what it took to get this brand new product into stores, and the cold calls, the trade shows, store demos. Can you take us a little bit through what that sales process was like?
Yeah, so actually selling the product wasn't as much the hard part, because again, retailers really want something new in the baby food category. Moms are their most precious customer. They have the biggest shopping baskets, and so they want to do new things to bring moms into the stores. So we got into more stores faster than I think a lot of food brands do, because we had that going for us. What was hard was actually in the very early days trying to convince consumers to buy our product. So retailers were so excited. Target was in this 24-store test. I'm from the Midwest and went to that first meeting and I actually, this is a whole nother story, but my dad drove me around. We got on a map and we marked out the 24 stores, and some of them were in Iowa. We forgot those, but we literally drove around in his he had this old station wagon. It was the big dashboard with this map. We drove around and we went into the stores, and he would point to okay, she's pregnant over there, or she has a baby, and I would walk around with this cart full of our frozen Happy Baby and free coupons. And I was like, here, hi, I'm just cold approaching moms in the store, hey, can I give you this free product? My dad always said that he didn't want to approach people because he thought it'd be really creepy, older guy approaching these young moms. But anyway, so and our sales would spike when I was doing this, and then one time I was doing it, I actually got caught by the Target police, which is really bad. The store, the people in the red shirts were like, this is not okay. This is not approved policy to walk around the store accosting customers. So the hardest part was actually to kind of sustain our placement while we were trying to figure out our business model. I think that was one of the more challenging times in retail.
Yeah. Well, it seems like hustle is a theme
in
a lot of the stories, and asking for forgiveness rather than permission when it comes to getting out there and selling. Thank you so much for sharing the story, Jessica.
Thank you. Thank you.